for you to just tune in and do what your body needs. This is my favorite way to start classes when I teach retreats or when I teach my 3-week challenges, for just a moment for you to kind of recognize what your energy level is. Do you want to sit in meditation? So it's just going to be 3 minutes. Do you want to take a Yin pose? Do you want to come to all fours and do some cat and cow, or already stretch into a downward facing dog? And if you feel really lost by these instructions, then what you can do what my body feels like doing and see if it fits. So my thing is that I'm a little bit tired, and my little trick is when I'm resisting practice, like I'm like, I don't wanna, I have all excuses not to do, then I kind of coax my body to come onto a mat and just do one pose, and that would be wide knee child's pose for me. So that's my way to kind of get myself on the mat, but it might be something different for you. So another few minutes. You're going to either be in stillness or in some movement or doing some breathing work or sitting in meditation. And just giving it a moment to just let yourself tune in. So in a lunar cycle, we are in new moon energy right now, but in the yearly cycle, we kind of very much moving towards summer. So there's 2 types of kind of energies out and about influencing us. And so just kind of checking in, what's your energy level right now? Where would you pace yourself on this cycle of inward movement, contraction, slowing down, and outward movement, expansion, doing? And we have just about like 30 more seconds. And if you are in wide knee child's pose with me, let's stay for a little bit longer. And then if you are doing something else, you could slowly bring that to closure. Take your time, there's no rush, and just for 1 more minute, join me here. Join me in the wide knee child's pose. So I call today's class the sacred cycle. So we're kind of investigating this cyclical nature of life, of everything. As I said, there's a lunar cycle, a monthly cycle, there's a yearly cycle as we move through the seasons, there's a daily cycle as, morning, noon, and moving then to the peak of the day, and then the evening and sunset and night. And as we are part of nature and part of life, then we are also cyclical beings. And so it's just kind of bringing that in a little bit as we move, and we start with, just as I said, you connecting. Where might you be in that cycle of waning and waxing, fullness and emptiness? The seasons of winter, spring, summer, and autumn. What's your inner season right now? Give it another few breaths here. And then begin to walk your hands back towards your knees and let your knees come towards each other. So you coming to a child's pose where the thighs are more closer together. And then drape your belly back onto the thighs. Let your head come down towards the ground. If it doesn't all the way come onto the mat, that's fine. And we'll start to ripple up from here. So keep your head heavy. And as if there's a string at the back of the heart, begin to roll your spine up. And then you can slide your hands slightly behind you, or you can put them onto your thighs as you begin to open the front body. Maybe your head drops back, or maybe that's not comfortable, so then you can have your chin more staying in. And then when we start the exhale, it's as if the lower belly comes onto the thighs, the middle of the belly, the chest, and then the head last is rippling down towards the ground. And so see if you can make this into a flow of rolling up, curling up, opening, 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 coming to that most expansive variation of the shape. And then there's the downward movement back to the ground, back to the seed as you empty out. And so let that represent that cycle of, like a plant growing, coming to full fruition and blossom. And then there's the other half of the cycle when there's a decay and composting, returning to the ground. Find a rhythm that works and let your spine ripple. A couple of more times here like this. Probably feels nice to use the inhale to roll up and use the exhale to roll back down. And then next time when you roll down, as you're rolling down, let your arms also reach forward, so you're in extended child's pose, and then ripple your spine to all fours. So you're going to lift your hips away from your heels, the spine stays rounded, the head drops, and then as you are on all fours, the chest lifts, the sit bones lift, and then as you exhale, the buttocks move back towards the heels. Finally, the head drops again at the bottom of that breath. And so we keep rippling, but now from all fours back to child's pose. And just again, physically, you're moving your spine. And we've been playing with that a lot, the back body opening and then the front body opening. The back body shortening and the front body shortening. Go a few more rounds like this. Rippling forward, rippling backwards. And then next time, when you come to all fours, we're going to keep kind of that movement happening, but you're going to add your right arm. So when you roll the buttocks back towards the heels, the right hand goes back, and then you're going to reach it up. It makes a circle as you come back to all fours. It reaches forward, and then exhale, you go back. Slow it down. So the whole idea here is to get really sensitive and feel the range of movement that's possible in that right shoulder. So the right arm is moving back, up, forward. But it's the arm is moving, but we kind of intending to feel into the shoulder, the movement in the shoulder socket. And see how soft you can make it, so that explorative first movement, kind of like that spring phase. Doesn't have to be hugely dramatic or big, just exploration. And then on the next circle, when the right arm reaches forward, do take the palm down onto the mat, so right hand down. Left hand comes sideways, and then we do a shoulder stretch as you release your chest down. You could have your forehead come onto the mat, or maybe forehead onto the forearm, or making a fist, to see what works for you. And then coming into a Yin Fold here. So you've explored into the range of movement in the shoulder, and now giving it a passive stretch as the right arm reaches forward. Your buttocks are on top of your knees. And you kind of relax the right forearm down onto the ground, so you don't have to actively reach. Coming into that passive yin hold, relaxing the structures around the shoulder, and taking breath, letting awareness travel, maybe a little bit more keenly around that right shoulder, waistline, rib cage. So in a seasonal cycle, the springtime is obviously that the new beginnings, the visioning, the planning, but it also stands for like tenderness and vulnerability. When we think of a life cycle of a plant, it would be the sprout, like the first attempt, a plant rising out of the darkness towards the light. And so allowing and kind of also protecting that tenderness and making room for vulnerability as a natural part of the cycle and not overriding it, overcompensating, or rushing it in any way. Stay for another 3 breaths. Right side of the body. Breathes, softens, allows for sensation, stays away from pain. Give it one more breath. And then slide that right arm just a tiny bit back so your shoulder is no longer stretching, but then put more weight onto your forearm so you can travel and take your whole torso down onto the ground. Just take a little moment here, make a pillow of the hands under your forehead and just breathe in and out. And then we'll come to a Sphinx pose by bringing the forearms down onto the ground. And the option that I'll give you today is to bring the right knee up to do, sometimes it's also called a lizard pose or one-sided Sphinx pose. And if you notice that for your body this doesn't work, there's too much discomfort in the hip or in the lower back, then just stay with what we usually do. But you can experiment that. If it's the knee on the ground that's uncomfortable, then you slide a blanket underneath it. And you can play with where exactly that knee is. Do you bring it higher to keep it more in line? And either forearms down. There's also a variation where you could bring the palms down. For me, this is way too much, but your body is different, so feel free to experiment. And for about 2 minutes, we'll stay here for that one side. Letting the straight leg relax, feeling also the bone of that right leg and maybe the hip socket, and again, softening and letting the bones release towards the ground. Feel into the steadiness and the kind of the stillness of the outer structure. Letting yourself settle. And we're kind of still in the yin part of the sacred cycle as we move slowly, as we stay very close to the ground and we still very much resourcing ourselves from the ground, more of a yielding downward. Again, about 3 or 4 more breaths in this shape. And then I'll take my rebound by hugging that right knee a little bit higher up. So if you had it straight, this one I think you can do. So hiking the right knee higher up, beginning to walk the right elbow towards the right knee. So you're curling the right side. Side of the waist is contracting, and then either left elbow is pointing up towards the front of your mat, or you could also straighten that left arm as you rest the left cheek down onto the mat or onto the palms. Really relax the left leg. So for a moment, there's again this opening through the left side and a squeezing, contracting through the right side. And we'll just give it a couple of breaths here. And once more, being in that part of the cycle where we're completely releasing to the ground. And recognizing that that part is also needed. As we live in a culture that really glorifies the part where we're out there producing the expansive state. So we're supposed to be in full bloom all of the time. And that's just not how nature operates, works. So let yourself feel into the yin part of the cycle. From here, you gather the energy so then you can fully express yourself, but in a very connected way, as when the time comes, when the energy is such that you moving more towards the yang part of the cycle. And then let us begin to slide the right leg back, walking yourself back towards the center. Press yourself to all fours, and then we'll come back to child's pose with buttocks on the heels, forehead down towards the ground. See if you need a moment here. So you could stay in child's pose. When you feel ready, come back to that rippling action. So rolling the spine up. So you come and sit on your heels, and then the chest curls open. Exhale brings you back down. So if you need a little bit longer in child's pose, or you just prefer that, you could do that. Otherwise, again, we're coming to a little bit of movement that represents that cyclical nature of life. Next time, when your belly starts to roll down, the arms are going to slide forward. So you're an extended child. Next inhale, curls the spine as you come to all fours. And then chest lifts, bum lifts as you ripple backwards, buttocks back towards heels. Once more like this. And then we'll add the left arm. So we're going to start to circle. Left arm goes back, up and forward. And as the arm moves, let your awareness really stay with the shoulder socket, and just really feel the movement there. Slow it down so you can pay attention. How soft can you move? Are there some parts that you really clearly feel, some restriction? Nothing needs to be rushed. Honoring what's there. And then on the next round, the left arm is going to reach forward, and right arm is going to come sideways. Your hips stay on top of the knees, and then you're settling once more into that shoulder stretch, half a heart melting pose, Untitled Asana, one arm at a time. Let the forearm rest on the ground. Soften the structures around that left shoulder. Maybe again letting your attention, your awareness travel a little bit more along that left side, left shoulder, side ribs. Again, pausing for a moment. Making room for softness and tenderness. That also stands for that springtime. the energy is rising, but we don't need to rush this part. So this would be in life whenever you start something new. Then know that that beginning is going to kind of feel like a bit of like exposing yourself, as I said, vulnerability. And so allowing a wobble, allowing for failure, allowing for not knowing, uncertainty, and softening away from needing to master, excel, just in this moment. And we have about 3 or 4 more breaths here. And as you start to prepare transitioning onto the belly, you might want to just bring that left forearm in so the shoulder comes out of that stretchy place, and you can walk yourself on the forearms down onto the belly, and just again give yourself a little moment here to feel the left shoulder. If you need longer in the rebound, then always please take it. And when you're ready, it's the Sphinx Pose with left leg this time traveling up. So in your own time, moving into that back bend where we now are squeezing the left side. You could think of it squeezing the left kidney there below your lower ribs on the left side. And again, the deeper variation for those who feel that that is the better option is to come onto the palms of the hands to lift the elbows up. So another about 2 minutes, we'll pause here. What is it that you notice? Are you getting some more clarity maybe about which cycle are you in? And then you can use that as we practice. You make your choices accordingly. Honoring. Each part of the cycle has its own gifts that we can harness. And so the first task is to really, yes, I said, like really tune in and recognize and not try to fight it or move against it. And then as we slowly release this one, again, hiking that right knee a little bit higher, left knee, so that you squeeze the left side a little bit more, and you walk your upper body towards it, so left elbow comes as close to that left knee as feels comfortable. right elbow can point forward. If that's not particularly working for your shoulder, just stretch the right arm out and then rest the right cheek either onto your hand or onto the mat and really let that right leg flop. And again, we just surrender, dropping downwards, letting the gravity really pull the body down, the bones of the body, the flesh of the body. Just a moment here, sinking. And then 2 more breaths here. Begin to slide the left knee back. Begin to bring yourself back to the center, pressing one more time to all fours, rounding yourself to child's pose. And same thing here, either pause in child's for a couple of breaths or come and ripple with me. Now for some bodies, bringing the arms back and even lifting the hips up slightly, kind of a variation of a camel pose, feels good. My body somehow doesn't really like this, but feel free to experiment that could be where your inhale takes you, and then you come back down as you exhale, belly on the chest on the thighs. So a couple of those. I'm going to just stay with the variation of buttocks on the heels, but I don't want to hold you back if your back bend is such that it really feels nice to lift the hips away from the heels. And one more. Next time when the belly moves down onto the thighs, the arms are going to slide forward. You're going to ripple to all fours just one time back to the heels. And then next time when you ripple to all fours, you're going to tuck the toes under. We're going to push ourselves to that tangling position. So I'm going to lift the knees off the mat and at the same time walking the hands back so you are at the back of your mat with knees soft, head dropping, couple of breaths here. So we're starting to slowly change our relationship with the ground as we begin to grow a little bit more taller. So give it another moment here. Let the head release. Let yourself really sense the back line of the body. You can straighten the knees just to a point where you begin to feel a sensation at the back of the legs and then bend them again. So really slowly. Again, think of that tenderness of a first sprout, green sprout coming out of the ground. So we really don't want to push or force anything, but we also don't want to hold ourselves back. So how can I find that place where it works? And soften the knees enough that you can start to roll yourself up. So really press the soles of the feet down, keep your head hanging, and use the power of your legs. These are your roots as you unfurl up and out, coming to standing. Keeping the feet a little bit wider than your hips. I mean, we're going to do this rolling up and down. So I'm going to orientate first towards my right big toe. So as if that's where my end point is. So I'm going to curl forward, head drops, knees are soft, and I'm going to curl down towards the right big toe, emptying that breath out. And then bend your knees quite a lot, press onto the ground, and then come back up using the power of your legs, kind of like using that rebound to come back up, and then facing over the left big toe, dropping head, dropping shoulders, curling down, emptying that breath out. And then again, bend into your knees and kind of like a push on the ground. It doesn't even have to be super slow. So I'm pushing and rolling up. Then I'm going to face the second toe. And if for you, for any reason, that starts to feel a little bit iffy in the sacrum, then stay with the big toe. So I'm going to angle myself a little bit more, emptying out. So finding again the right tempo for this, and then bending the knees, using the power of my legs to unfurl and come back up. So left second toe. Emptying downwards, bending the knees, using the power of your legs that yield from the ground to come back up. And then you guessed it, we're going to go to the third toe on both sides and the fourth toe on both sides. So a couple of more rounds. Keep an eye on your lower back. I'm going to let my head really drop as I roll, so I'm not leading with the chest. Head also stays dropping as I press onto the ground and up. And I have just my fourth toes too. So you might be at a different pace, but really feel the spine. And practice that pushing down and using your legs to roll back up, using your roots, the connectedness. And then finally, when you're up and standing, you're at the back of the mat. Pause for a moment, feel into the soles of the feet. Open your eyes, but keep them soft. And we're going to do like a walking meditation towards the top of the mat. So springtime, as I said, is something like you have a vision. So maybe you even feel like, what is it that you want to move towards? If you don't have anything, then be present right here in your body, slow-mo. So I'm peeling the right foot off the ground and then placing it back. And the whole idea is to fully feel the ground, the body moving. Notice if there's this need to rush, then slow down. Feel the uncomfort of the slow. Or maybe you're enjoying moving this slow. Maybe this feels like, oh, finally, this is my pace. Keep your eyes soft. The goal is not even to get there, but the goal is just here, feeling this movement, having a direction, but a direction that is kind of sourced from that deep connection within. And then eventually you land at the top of your mat. Emptying your breath out. And then we'll move through a couple of rounds of Sun Salutations. You could move with me. You could also move through your own favorite Sun Salutations. I'm going to move quite slow initially, and I'm going to bring my favorite elements in. So it's not going to be your classical Sun Salutation. But if you have a variation that you love, then please do what works for you. Think of this as we entering our summer phase, which is expansive, which means we really want to show ourselves. So that's the representation here. So keeping the knees slightly soft, emptying the breath out. On the inhale, as the arms reach up, you could stay more kind of arms up, or you could lean back. Notice how your back responds to that when you add a back bend here. And then exhale down as your belly comes onto the thighs, head drops. Knees are soft, fingers on the mat. Inhale, lift away from the thighs, and exhale, right leg takes a big step back. And I'm going to put my knee down on this round. On the inhale, rising into a kneeling lunge, staying here on an exhale, finding that edge that works for you. Give it another breath. Let that breath bring in more softness. And then as you exhale, downward facing dog, empty that breath out. I'm going to do a few rounds of that spinal undulation. So you could do the small variation that we've been doing, knees down, or you could keep the knees up and come to plank. And then curling back, knees almost onto the ground. So just this couple of rounds. But you could be moving differently, right? Eventually on all fours, softening the knees down, slowly lowering the thighs down, belly down, all the way down. And I'm going to keep the curling action here for the Cobra as well. So on the inhale, rolling up. Exhale, belly down. And hands could be on the shoulders, or I like to have them a little bit wider off the mat. And one more round. Next time, belly's on the ground, hands come under the shoulders, all fours, tuck toes, Back in downward facing dog, emptying breath out. On the inhale, the right leg lifts back and up. On the exhale, it comes between the hands. Left knee settles down. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Exhale, finding stability. Inhale, finding ease. And then exhale, we'll transition to the top of the mat, left leg steps forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bow forward. Soften knees, find that bounce from the ground, rolling up. Inhale, inhale, inhale. And then exhale, hands travel back through the center line, emptying that breath out. Maybe a pause here, breathing in, breathing out, checking how you feel, adjusting your pace if you need to. Second side. Rise on the breath. Bow as you empty, folding in. Inhale, lifting away from the legs. This time it's the left leg back. I'm going to keep my back knee up on this round, but you could come to the same variation we did, back knee down. Inhale, rise, so a little bit more dynamic. Exhale, steady. Again, what can soften here? Maybe a little bit of a back bend. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. On this round, I want to work a little bit more on strength rather than flow. So I'm going to come to plank and I hold plank for 3 breaths, but you could be doing the spinal undulation or you could be doing your own variation here. If holding plank with knees up is too much, just soften the knees down. Get your legs strong, push away from the ground, soften your eyes. One more. And then slowly lower down. So again, you could soften the knees down. And this time coming into a back bend of your choice, Cobra, Sphinx Pose, up dog, and then also holding it for a couple of breaths. One more. If you're in upward facing dog, you could move straight to downward facing dog. Otherwise, you can lower the belly down and lift to all fours. And then back to downward facing dog. When you're ready, the left leg lifts. Inhale. Left foot comes to the top of the mat. Exhale. Again, back knee down or up as you inhale, rise. Exhale, find steadiness, stability. Give it another breath. And then on the exhale, hands come down, back foot steps in. Halfway lift, inhale. And then a slow, steady folding forward. Knees can soften, chin comes in. Again, bend knees, push onto the ground, furling, curling up, inhale. And then exhale, 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 hands in front of heart. Breath in. Breath out. Stay at the top of the mat. Give it another moment here. And then release the hands to the side. We'll stay in that expansive summer phase for one more flow. So we're going to come back to the running man that we practiced last week. So find a little bit more ground under your left foot. So really stabilize it down. And then bring your right knee up. Then find buoyancy in that left knee. And you can bring the left arm forward. Then slowly, part of my weight is going to move forward, part of my weight is going to move back. I like to extend the right arm forward and then just tapping that right foot onto the mat, big toe, and then coming back. So play with this a little bit. Again, the wobble is there, but summertime also about like kind of confidence. Tap it. And one last time now, when the right foot starts to move back, find ground, but see how slow you can make it. Let your foot find the mat. And then we find warrior 2. So you're going to pivot the right heel down. You might need to adjust the front foot a little bit, so the front heel more or less cuts the back foot in half and then bend into that front knee. So you stay facing the way you were facing. I'm just changing around because I don't want to be with my back to you. Draw the arms out to the sides. And then straighten that front leg, draw the arms up. And then as you exhale, sink in. And you could draw the hands down and forward. So on the next round, you're representing this circle, exhaling warrior. Inhaling arm circle. Exhale, ground that back heel as you sink the hips. And one last one. Inhale, rise. And then steady yourself in your warrior. Look at your front knee. Have it really move to the little toe side. So try to avoid the knee buckling in. So if you need to adjust the back hip, let the back hip come slightly forward. All right. And one more flow from here. So we're working with strength now. So press your feet down. Lean back, but bring not the right hand onto the right thigh, but kind of in front of your belly as you lean back. And then as you lean forward, as if coming to Parsvakonasana, kind of pause halfway so the left hand comes forward, right hand comes up. And then move a couple of times, really strong legs. Inhale, lean back, but just a little bit. Exhale, swap the hands, lean forward, keep the back heel strong. And one more like this, leaning back. Perfect, leaning forward. And then coming up, straightening that front leg and coming to Trikonasana. So you're going to bring that left hand to the crease of the left hip. So making sure that the leaning forward is not happening so much up in the waist, but it's the hips moving back. And then bringing the left hand onto the left thigh, letting your rib cage open up towards the ceiling as the right hand comes up. So now you're quite in an expansive pose, so like an octopus reaching out, down through the legs, up and down through the arms, forward through the ground, back through the tail. Strong, expansive. Look down so your neck doesn't get strained. One more. And then slowly bend into that front knee just for a moment. Have your left elbow be on the left thigh. Draw the right hand forward. Breathe into the side body. Perfect. And then as you start to curl the right hand forward, we're going to come to Bardottan Asana. So hands are going to come down. You're going to pivot that left foot forward. And then hands underneath your shoulders. Feet pointing forward. Taking a breath in here. And then coming into a forward fold. Crown of the head releasing down. Emptying that breath out. Knees can be slightly bent. Relaxing your breath, grounding your feet. Let's give it another few rounds. Perfect. One more. And then as you walk the hands under the shoulders, come and walk them around that front foot, so your left foot, so you're back at the top of the mat. And we hug that left knee to our chest as you stay in plank, and then place the left knee behind the left wrist. Settle your back knee down, and we're walking the back knee as far back as it's willing to go, coming towards a pigeon pose. I'm going to invite you to stay upright for a moment. So either palms down or fingertips down, and to hug the front knee back and the back knee forward. So it actually lifts you off the ground and activates the muscles around your hips. So I'm hugging front knee back, back knee forward. And you feel that activation. Give it a couple of breaths. So working on building strength around the joints. And then for about 5 breaths, relax that activation, maybe even walk forward, coming more to what we call a sleeping pigeon, where you now relax that muscle tone and you're coming more towards a stretch. Either staying forearms down, maybe making a pillow out of your fists so that the forehead can rest. About 3 more breaths. Notice where you feel this. Notice your breathing settling. Perfect. One more breath in. One more breath out. We're going to release out through forearm plank. So you're going to have your forearms on the mat. As you tuck your right toes under, walk that right foot slightly forward so you have space to lift the hips up and get that left leg to the back of the mat. And then letting the hips be in the same line with your shoulders, pressing the forearms down. Widening the upper back, hugging the thigh muscle to thigh bone. So again, that more active part of the cycle, more engagement, strength. One more breath. And then drop the knees. Send the buttocks back towards the heels. Child's pose, empty, empty, empty breath. Stay here or come with me through a few more of these circles as you roll up. Maybe again, for you it works to lift the hips off. Exhale, rolling back down. Just maybe 2 rounds of that. Cyclical theme here. Next time, when the belly curls down, the hands are going to slide forward. You're going to roll to all fours, lift the chest, lift the sit bones, back in downward facing dog. Empty that breath out. Lift your left leg up on the inhale. Bring your left foot forward to the top of the mat. One more lunge so the back knee stays up as you rise. And then draw the palms together, let them come back towards the front of the heart. And then we'll slowly begin to lean forward. And option 1 is to stay here, just leaning forward. Already that works your buttock, works your core, or warrior 3. So I'm going to start bringing a little bit more weight onto that front leg as the back leg lifts. Arms can do whatever. I like them in front of heart, but you could send them back, sides, forward. If you're in warrior 3, your standing knee bends slightly and you come back to standing with the right knee coming to chest. And if you were halfway forward, then just come to forward fold and roll up from there to standing. Eventually, we'll meet both feet down on the ground. And then let yourself just find, so my hips recently really want to do this figure 8 shape or infinity shape, but maybe you just want to shake it out or do hula hooping. So just kind of release a little bit. Just reform movement, shaking out so you know that we've got one more side to go. Eventually pausing at the top of the mat. Beginning to feel a little bit more, connecting a little bit more to the sole of the right foot as the left knee comes up. Find that buoyancy. So you have this negotiating with the ground, with your balance, bringing the right arm up, and then starting to shift body weight equally forward and back. As the chest goes forward, the left toes are going to reach back, the foot back, and left arm forward, tapping. And then back to standing, knee up, right arm up, elbow up. And a couple of times. Call it the running man, slow motion. And then one more. With movement. Next time your left leg reaches back, it's going to find the ground. Going to bring weight onto both feet, straighten the front knee, and then you might need to wiggle yourself wider, position that front foot more at the center, sending that right knee over the little toe side, so not letting that buckle in, drawing the arms out to the sides. And then as you straighten the leg, the arms drop and circle up. And as you exhale, warrior 2. So just dancing your warrior a couple of rounds. Again, feeling into that cyclical movement here. more pressing down and rising, more releasing towards the ground. One last one. And then pausing in the warrior. Starting to, so you lift the right palm up as you lean back, instead of putting that left hand on the left thigh, just kind of touching your core, your center. And then you swap the hands, right hand touches the center, left arm reaches forward, but legs are gonna stay super strong. And then move slowly a couple of times. Leaning back. As you lean forward, really feel that back heel rooting down. Feel that line from the heel to the fingertip. One more. And then next time when you're rising up, straighten into that front leg. So giving that hip a little bit of a break. And again, finding the hip crease, so that movement to Trikonasana is not so much from the waist, but with the hips gliding back, so the pelvic half is rolling over your thigh bone. Doesn't have to go deep. The arm doesn't have to get down onto the ground. It finds support. And then the left arm comes up. A little bit of softness in that front knee, pressing down through the foot, finding the tone in the legs by rooting down. One more. And then looking down, beginning to bend into that front knee for just a moment. That left elbow rests on the, right elbow on the right thigh. So you're sending that top arm over, so you're coming more into a steady, still expression of your Parsvakonasana side angle pose. And then look down, begin to roll the hands down on the inside, but then walk them halfway over, so you can come one more time into a wide-legged forward fold, Bardottan Asana. Adjust the feet if you need to. There's different arm positions here, so you could bring the hands, fingers in line with the toes. Some people like to take hold of the big toes with peace fingers. And then there's also a variation where you interlock the hands behind your back so that you get a shoulder stretch. Give it a moment. Notice what is it that you need. And if your hands have been interlocked, then unlock them and return the hands onto the ground. Walk the hands under the shoulders. We're going to travel back around that right foot, front of the mat. Pressing the hands under your shoulders, you press down just for a moment. You let yourself hover with the right knee in your chest. And then placing the right knee behind the right wrist. Back knee also comes down onto the mat and then begins to walk backwards. And at one point you might feel that it can't move much further back. We bring the activation in, back leg as if I want to drag it forward, front knee as if I want to drag it backward, and that's going to activate your muscle, and you're going to lift up and away from the ground. So instead of dropping that relationship to the ground, now we're going to rise up and out, and it takes a little bit more engagement, and this is sometimes what we need. Feel into that. Also our body, like life cycles, but also our body needs both strength and openness. And then as you exhale, let yourself find the sleeping pigeon, or the variation where we now relax the muscle tone, release the body towards the ground, beginning to soften, soften, soften. Relaxing your breath. And then slowly come to a place where your forearms are on the ground. So same exit. We're going to come to a forearm plank. So you can bring the palms together. You could also have the forearms parallel, so you can play with that, what works for your shoulders. Left toes tuck under. They might need to walk a little bit more forward so you can get that right leg from underneath. Stretch it all the way to the back and then bring the toes onto the mat for 3 breaths. Pressing the ground away. Let your, don't drop your head completely, so slightly looking down and forward, so back of neck is long. 1 more breath. On this round, we're going to drop the knees down and come all the way onto the belly for a back strengthener. So I can't do a class without this. So just lifting the upper body and then maybe legs as well. So this one is about back body strength. Reaching away through the balls of the feet. Another breath. And then lower. Find your expression of Cobra on the inhale. Begin to curl the belly away from the ground so the front body shortens as the back body begins to lengthen. As you settle into a child's pose, empty that breath out. Again, stay in child's pose. Or again, come through that flow that we've been doing. So you can come and flow, curl up. If you feel like your body is up for a little bit of a more dynamic back bend, you could also do the full camel flow, coming kneeling onto your knees. I need to tuck my toes under, so I'm not very, this posture doesn't agree with me so much, but you could also keep your feet flat on the ground. And I'm going to do one side at a time. Left hand reaches back onto that left heel. Right arm is up. I'm going to lean slightly back with the buttocks. I'm going to roll forward and then switch right hand on the right heel, left arm up. Exhaling, inhaling. You could stay with that curling that we've been doing the whole practice if this feels too much. 1 more. I'll finish on the right side. And then a moment into a child's pose. Let yourself curl to all fours. Tuck toes. Stretch to downward facing dog. Lift your right leg back and up. Step the right foot to the top of the mat. High lunge, so back knee stays lifted as you rise. Palms come together and they travel back through the center line towards the heart. Feel into your balance here. Lean slightly forward and pause here. Or begin to bring a little bit more weight onto that front leg, lifting the back leg up to warrior 3. 2 more breaths. If you had the back foot down, then just bring also your hands down and step forward, beginning to roll up. If you're in warrior 3, standing knees buoyant, come to standing, hugging that left knee to your chest just for a moment. And then we'll all meet feet on the mat. And one more time, maybe it's shaking, maybe it's a little bit of a wiggle. And then ending up in our squatting pose that we often use as a transition as we start to move out from this phase to back down towards the ground, the downward movement, the releasing movement, the letting go and the surrender. So back towards the yin part of the class. So a little moment in here. And then taking your hands back behind you and sitting down onto the mat. And both of the postures that I offer here, you could also do on your back if your body agrees with that. So we did it similarly also in our yin class this week. Either you take a shoelace with the right knee on top. We'll spend about 2.5 minutes in a shoelace with an option then halfway through to extend that bottom leg, left leg, and come to half shoelace. Okay? If this doesn't agree with your knees, it's too intense for whatever reason, so we have the right knee on top, you're going to do both postures on the back. So you can take threading the needle, right ankle over the right knee. And then when we come to a forward fold, you're going to straighten that right leg up from here. If you have something like a strap, you could use that. If you don't, then you can just hold that leg wherever you can reach. So choose your medicine. First, targeting the hips, either on your back or in seated. And when you are in the shoelace, if you are in a seated variation, then you can choose to stay upright, or you could also experiment folding forward. Generally, folding forward increases the intensity. So just notice if that's something that you need right now. The yin, the postures work best when we are at a place where we're not forcing, we're not aggressive. This works together with our nervous system. So the moment we force, the nervous system detects a threat and actually tightens the structures around our joints. So that's why moving slowly, gradually, staying at an edge where you really feel soft breath is available, my face is relaxed, my jaw is not clenching, is what actually is more effective. Letting your breathing slow. If the young part of the practice maybe got you a little bit labored, then also sometimes that arc really works, but eventually we want to come out of our practice feeling settled and grounded. If you are interested in changing and moving more towards the hamstring posture, for the back of that bottom leg. So if you're in shoelace, you're gonna straighten the left leg. If you're lying on your back and you had the right ankle over the left knee, then actually straighten the right leg up. And then leaning in. And if you are in a seated half shoelace and it doesn't work for you, having that right knee crossed over is like, I'm really awkward here, it hurts in the hip, it's not really working for me, please feel free. So our target area is back of that left leg. So you could just open it up and come to half butterfly, bringing the sole of the right foot to the inner left thigh. So know that it's not how it looks, it's I have something in mind that I want to affect by the posture. So if you're on your back, it's the back of that right leg, and if you're seated, it's the back of the left leg. So choose a variation where you can access that. And then about 2 more minutes, we'll sink in and we explore again the yin part of the cycle, the downward movement. We could think of it as this is kind of the prelude to Shavasana, kind of like the autumn season. And autumn is interesting. It has 2 aspects. It's a time of harvest, and it's at the same time as we kind of reap the fruits of our labor, it's also a time of letting go. And new moon time can be kind of like a time of harvest in a sense where we reflect back on the past cycle and notice what have we learned, what serves us, and what are we ready to let die. And then at the same time, it serves as this time, the darkness, as a time to plant seeds for the next cycle. So I'm hoping that one of the main things out of this cyclical practice is this realization that it's not about these two extremes, be yin or be yang, do or not do, but that it's about the cyclical nature of all life. I've said that about 100 times this class. It's natural at some point to be more inward, to take more time for yourself. And then from that place of deepened connection with ourselves, we have more to offer out in the world. As we come to the part of the cycle where we naturally have the desire and energy to be more engaged, participating, expressing. Take another breath. And then if you're on your back, you're going to stay on the back. If you are taking just the hip posture on the back, then also release onto your back. And if you are taking the shoelace for the opposite side, then maybe for now, just for the sake of this flow and for our management of time, then just stay seated and take a little moment of rebound here. Either again, just letting the legs flop and feeling the sensation around the hips, the back of that leg, or you could bring a little rocking motion in, or even windshield wipers, feet on the mat, and letting there be a little bit more movement. And then ready for the opposite side, either on your back, left ankle over the right thigh, over the right top of the thigh, or bringing the left knee on top as you're taking your shoelace. So we come for the hips first. Again, just tune in, find your expression here. if you're changing it to a hamstring posture, if you're on your back, so straighten that left leg up. And if you are in a forward folded shoelace, walk up, straighten your right leg, and then fold in again, either keeping that left knee on top of the right. If that's not at all working for you, then take the sole of the foot to the inside, maybe something under that left knee if it's really high up. So however you can access that hamstring. So for seated posture, we stay with the back of the right leg, and lying down, you have the back of the left leg. And again, we'll give it about 3 minutes from here. And then inviting the energy to move downward and inward, attention, focus, inward, inward, inward. And then let us slowly begin to find our way onto our backs. So if you're already there, you're already there. Take your time. So this is the end of the practice as you lie on your back, exactly like we started. If you feel like your body needs something else before Shavasana, give it whatever it needs. And if you feel like you're ready to come to the relaxation, then just make sure that you feel very comfortable for that. As always, you're also welcome to end at your own timeline by either muting your device or even leaving the session so that you can take a longer Shavasana or finish with meditation. I have another maybe 5-6 minutes. So know that that's that's my timeline. So if you're going to come with me, that's how long we have here. Settle, settle, settle. And so in the cycle, we would then come back to that place of a seed in the ground, dormant. That place of a new moon, of darkness. That gap between one thing ending and the new is not here yet. That liminal place in Shavasana where we not fully asleep, but we also kind of not completely awake either. That magical place where actually healing happens. What we soften away from here is our kind of personality structures and patterns. Know that you can pick them up afterwards. And symbolically, you could do that by really letting yourself sense the boundaries of your body beginning to dissolve. Feeling the inner space. Beginning to merge with the outer space. Sensing the solidity of the body dissolving and letting yourself rest here as this vibrating, awake presence, as pure awareness. Rather than being preoccupied and moving towards the content of different experience, let yourself really soften back and out. Beginning to sense that space where noticing is arising from. Some people call that space awareness. Some people even say it's a quality of love or peace. As our true nature. Letting yourself expand into a larger self that includes the body but is not limited or defined. So just tune in if you feel like you want to stay longer here. See if you can just zone me out and stay lying on your back. And if you want to finish the practice with me, then make your transition gradual and slow. Maybe some movement in the fingers and toes, wrists and ankles, some deeper breath. When you're ready, you can curl over to one side, and then that same curling action actually as you roll back to your seat, and just pausing in that more upright way of being just for a moment. Again, can you sense if you have the cycle, let's say the seasons, then can you sense where you're at right now? And sometimes it's a mixture, sometimes it's like it's changing by the hour, but more important than pinning it down is this act of being interested and tuning in and listening, and then slowly being in our actions, the way we treat ourselves, the way we engage with the world, honoring that cyclical nature. All right, let's honor this practice. I honor you by singing one Om. Please join in if you wish to. Emptying the breath out if you want to sing together. Drawing a breath in and then singing one Om. Thank you very much. Namaste.